First, after the assessment is done, the team prepares a performance outcome report, which, as I mentioned to you, is called the PAR for simplicity. This PAR is then delivered to the head of tax administration or the Minister of Finance, if appropriate, at least 24 hours before the exit meeting, which is on the last day of the mission. An electronic copy of the PAR is also sent to the TDAT Secretariat, which is required to review the performance outcome report and do the required quality assurance. Now, let's look at what the PAR contains. Now, if you look at the right-hand side of the screen, you will see how a performance assessment report looks like, the cover of a performance assessment report. This one in particular is from the Republic of Tadatland. And now the performance assessment report is intended to provide a full coverage of the country's TDAT assessment in a standardized and a concise manner. Standardized is important so that different PARs reflect the same standards. Now, as TDAT assessors, you are required to use the PAR template given in Appendix 4 of the field guide. So please look at Appendix 4 of the field guide to see how a PAR looks like. I'll show a little bit of that in this slide. Now, in this PAR, the assessment of a country's tax administration is demonstrated in 4 levels of detail. Now, there's an executive summary. There is a table 1, which is a summary table of the performance assessment. Then there's a spider diagram, which shows the distribution of the scores. And finally, there's a detailed assessment of each dimension and indicator. So let's go to the executive summary first. See, the executive summary looks like this on the right of the screen. It is usually 1 to 2 page description of the main strengths and weaknesses of the system of tax administration. The strengths are mentioned on the left-hand side of the page, and the weaknesses on the right-hand side. And then there is a little bit of description of the key strengths and weaknesses and why they are there. Just about a page and a half, maximum 2 pages. Now, then the second level of detail is the summary table. The summary table gives the assessed performance scores of all the 26 indicators. It does not give the scores of the dimension they are composed of. If you look at the table on the right of the screen, you'll see, for instance, for P11, which is about accurate and reliable taxpayer information, there's a score of B+, and it consists of 2 dimensions, but they are not mentioned. This is the composite score of the indicator. And as you have learned from previous modules, the composite score of indicators is based on either the average of the dimension scores, if it's a M2 method, or is based on the weakest link, if it's an M1 method. So this is the second level of detail. Now, here is the spider diagram, which is the third level of detail. And you will see here that the spider diagram gives the distribution of the score of the indicators. It doesn't give the distribution of the dimensions. It allows for a pictorial view of the strengths and weaknesses of the tax administration system in a particular country, and the weaknesses are closer to the center of concentric circles, and the dimensions and the strengths are towards the outside. You will see that the A's are over here and the D's are over here. And these are the indicators, all the 26 indicators from 1, 2, 3 to all the way to 22, 24, 25, 26. So, if a country has all A's, then it will be sitting around here. If a country has all Ds, it will be sitting around here. Typically, a country will have some strengths and some weaknesses, so it will be represented something like what you see in this diagram. Now, the fourth level of detail is the most detailed assessment, is where we describe in detail each dimension. In here, each dimension is scored separately. A full report is made of the evidence used for each scoring criteria and the justification for the scores of the dimension. So here we really write down what we saw and why we are giving a score of an A, B, C. And for the dimension scores, the composite score from the dimension score, the composite score of the indicator is determined, depending on, again, whether it's based on average of the dimension scores, M2, or based on the weakest link. The scoring method is indicated in the table, which is part of that detailed report, which contains the dimension scores, the indicator score, and the scoring method. For instance, you look at the scoring, the table here, which is part of the detailed report, 381 and 382. It shows what the name of the measurement dimension is, the existence of service delivery standards, for instance, and 382, which is the time taken to respond. And the tax administration got a B here and got a D here. And since this is an M2, it takes the average from table 3 of the field guide, and the average gets C. So C is the measurement for the entire indicator 3. On the other hand, if you look at performance outcome area 1, here indicator 1 is about adequacy and the other is about accuracy. For adequacy, the country gets a B, and for accuracy, the country gets a C. But this is an M1, which means the weakest link is taken into account. So the country, for the indicator 1, P11, the country gets a C. So this is the detailed assessment which is done, which is the meat of the report, basically. And in this, you have to, again, as I'll repeat again, in this you have to give the details of a summary detail of the evidence that you have gathered.